If you need your pitch changed, well, NordVPN can doctor any surface to a new location so that your IP address is set for you to win. Want to watch a game on a free stream in another hemisphere? Give NordVPN the ball. Or if you just want to watch a clip on social media that a cricket board won't allow, promote NordVPN to pinch hit. So if you need a VPN, go Nord. Use nordvpn.com/Kimber to get a 2-year contract with a discount, plus 4 extra months and gifts in some markets. It's completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the show notes. Protect your computer like a bowler protects the boundaries in the death overs with nordvpn.com/Kimber today. Morning, everyone, and welcome to the Scoreboard. I am Jared Kimber, and we are going to talk about the game today. But remember, please like, subscribe, do all the different things that make YouTubers happy. But let's start with this. Ollie Robinson started the day like late career Bradman, which means two things, or at least one of these things. Either the wicket was a lot better than we thought, or he was actually using some of the last flat moments of the pitch. India finally got a quick end to the innings, although it took them a long time to get a quick end, but only after England had stretched it out massively. Then India came to the wicket, and for a while, it looked like they would get near par, or at least were batting comfortably. But once we saw like little crumbs and flecks of the wicket flying up every time the ball hit the crack, it was more of a case of how close they could actually find themselves. When Jaiswal was dismissed, India lost their mojo almost completely, and when the ball got soft and they started to slow down the collapse, they couldn't put any pressure back on England. Okay, game mass time. India need to be chasing less than 200. The new ball is due in 7 overs time, so let's say they get 3 runs and over, so around 20 runs. And I assuming they're going to try and bowl dry. That's probably part of the reason that even Joe Root was on at the end there. That means that when the new ball comes, they've got 3 wickets in hand to get themselves at least 30 runs. That will still leave them, though, 84 runs behind. So they would then have to hope that Ashwin and Jadeja run through England without the wicket helping too much, because if the wicket is actually helping the Indian bowlers, it's still going to help the English bowlers. So they almost want it to either be the bowlers are just too good, or the touring team basball themselves into 110 all out. So as it currently stands, it means for India to win, England need to play a big part in the third innings collapse, because if it is the wicket, of course, India will have to bat on it in the end. But what about if India score more runs? Because their real chance is if they add another 80 to 100 runs from the position they're in at the moment. But if they do that, it might have to come fairly quick, which will be tougher with Kuldeep Yadav, because otherwise the pitch will only deteriorate the longer they are out there. If it takes them 40 overs to score those 100 runs, they're still going to be behind, and it means the wicket will be that much more advanced. So when it comes down to it, the mass is very much not on India's side. But let's get into the scoreboard for today. It's not a full scoreboard today, for many different reasons. I have no idea where my phone is. So if anyone on the production team is messaging me, we're on our own here. Actually, let me just get it. If for no other reason, then it has some of my notes. But I think I remember most of the things I need to do today anyway. But let's start with Shoaib Bashir. I thought he bowled really, really well today. I think the wicket suited him a lot more, and that certainly played a part in the way that he bowled. But even with that in mind, I thought he was a lot more accurate than we have seen of Joe Root and who else have we had in the series? Rayan Ahmed and Tom Hartley bowl. Right? He looked like he was in a situation where he was bowling very decent lines. And with his length, we'll come to his length in a moment, but I thought he controlled his length more or less well. Certainly better than I thought he did the first time I saw him bowl. And Tom Hartley actually ended up with the better figures. Tom Hartley really fought back quite well. I didn't think Tom Hartley was as accurate, but Tom Hartley was maybe a little bit, his best ball was a little bit better than Bashir's at time. But it was obviously Bashir who got the wickets. But, you know, to be a bowler who just hasn't bowled a lot in first-class cricket before, and be this economical, even with the wicket in your assistance, I thought was a really good effort from him. This is his pitch map. Honestly, at the moment, just on Bashir's bowling, I just remembered another bit I wanted to talk about. I do feel that the best place to hit the ball right at the moment is back to him. He does not seem to understand how to field off his own bowling. Fumbles, he gets himself in the wrong position. It feels really awkward. He doesn't field as bad in the outer. So it is, and I've seen this with bowlers sometimes. They're so focused on what they're doing, especially when they're younger, they kind of don't know how to get themselves into a good position. Anyway, this is his pitch map. You can see here, there's only one ball that was over pitched. That is very important. There are a lot of short balls here, right? That's okay because on a wicket like this, if you do bowl a little bit shorter and the odd ball is keeping low, you can see two of these are actually, this one's fine, but this one's even a little bit shorter and gets his wicket. That's because the ball is keeping low, right? So there was a ball towards the end, I think Tom Hartley bowled where he went short. It was probably one of the first long hops that actually kind of sat up. Most of the other long hops have either dribbled along low or just haven't been in a position where people can hit them very well. So even though there is way too many balls here, you can see that it's he's only pitching wrong in one direction, and in that one direction is the better one for this wicket. The other thing is that fairly good lines. This is not elite bowling lines, right? But we wouldn't expect a bowler with his career arc so far to be elite. But he's not. But there aren't the balls out here, right? And out here in these areas. So overall, this is not a bad pitch map for this kind of wicket. The other thing I want to talk about, this is off spinners by side of wicket to the left-hander. So I asked this of CricViz today because Shoaib Bashir was bowling over the wicket to Jaiswal. And the reason you don't see that anymore, so for those old heads, they might remember, I think one of my favorite wickets ever is Pat Simcox coming over the wicket to Michael Bevan and bowling him around his pads. And we don't see that very much anymore because once DRS came in for an off spinner around the wicket, it just made sense to pitch every ball on off stump or middle stump and try and get LBWs and bowled and caught behind and caught in slips. It's a much better way. Whereas if you're bowling over the wicket, you're kind of taking LBW out of the play. Even bowled is less likely unless you do something absolutely magical with the ball. And it's generally used as a defensive ploy. Same with left arm finger spinners. You see a left arm finger spinner bowling over the wicket to a right-hander, it usually means that they're trying to stop the runs. He did it to Jaiswal today, and you can see just how rarely off-spinners bowl over the wicket to left-handers in modern cricket. And I thought maybe this is something that Shoaib Bashir, who wouldn't have bowled to as many left-handers in his career so far, because he hasn't bowled to many of anything, maybe he's still developing. But CricViz looked this up, and you could see that over the wicket, in county cricket, and this is from like the 12 balls he's ever bowled in county cricket, but you could see that he's not something he usually does. He does it quite rarely as well. But I thought it was a good tactic at times today because Jaiswal is just such a brilliant player of off spin that if he just kept putting it outside off stump, I think Jaiswal would have found it easier to score. And just giving him a different angle made Jaiswal reevaluate a little bit, and as I said, it's a bit of a negative, defensive angle as well. So from that perspective, it also helped the bowler just keep a little bit more pressure on. But top bowling from him today, be interesting to see. He's obviously still got a big role left to play in this game, but I was happy when he was picked for this side, just because I thought if they tried to do this to Joe Root again, it wouldn't have been. I think they would have got to a point where it would have really started to affect Joe Root physically bowling the amount that he had. Also, looking at this wicket, I think at the moment it's a good wicket for Joe Root to bowl, but probably earlier on, I think it might have been better for that kind of taller bowler. And I don't think Rayan Ahmed would have been as effective. Shoaib was actually picked ahead of Rayan Ahmed, and then Rayan Ahmed had to go home for personal reasons after that. But fantastic bowling from him. I want to talk... Okay, we'll just go straight into this. I want to talk about something that happened during Jaiswal's innings, which I thought was quite interesting. When he was facing Ollie Robinson took his edge, and obviously Joe Root thought it was out. Ollie Robinson wasn't sure. Ben Folkes was kind of not sure, and then sure, and then sure, unsure again. And obviously it bounced. But the point being that what Robinson was trying to do is, I think he was aiming at a crack just outside off stump. trying to get some movement and variation off that section of the wicket. And I thought he was actually bowling quite well. He would, after that ball, the next ball, Jaiswal came down the wicket. Next over, he plays and misses. Next ball, Jaiswal comes down the wicket. Later on, plays and misses again. Jaiswal comes down the wicket. This is probably India are probably one of the last teams that I've seen to really go in with this method. I think England and Pakistan don't really shuffle as much, but they use the crease a lot more, a bit Javed Miandad style. New Zealand use a combination of batting out of their crease and coming down the wicket. But those were the first three teams I really started seeing using this tactic to seam bowling, which is to try and disrupt the length against wobble ball. Not that it was wobble ball today because it was more about the crack, but it's the same basic principle. You're not going to be able to bowl this length because I'm not going to be just sitting there waiting for it to come. I'm actually going to disrupt you. It was really, really noticeable that every time he had an issue, Jaiswal, he did that. And you can see players don't do it that much. Joe Root does it more than anyone else. I would say he also probably plays back further than other players. So not only does he come down the wicket, he is a lot more like Javed Miandad in some way. And sometimes he would actually go all the way back onto his stumps and play a ball as well, which means that bowling a consistent length to Joe Root is very, very tough. But you can see here the two younger Indian players, and we saw Rohit Sharma do this quite a bit in the limited over in the World Cup, and also Rohit Sharma's done it occasionally in this series as well. Ollie Pope is probably what I would say one of the better players at coming down the wicket and doing that. I like the way he does it. He actually went out in this game doing that as well. Won that LBW, and what he was trying to do is either get far enough down that it made DRS a little bit tricky, or at least put some doubt in the umpire's mind, and also trying to get outside the line. Sadly, he didn't do that. Ben Stokes and Josh Buttler, I would say in Test cricket, are two of the pioneers of this, and I think they did it for slightly different reasons. I think at times with Ben Stokes and Josh Buttler, they did it because they wanted more pace on the ball, and wanted to do it from that point of view. But it doesn't really matter why you do it. This is something we're seeing a lot now, and it was interesting to see Jaiswal do it so blatantly and so obviously against them. Let's have a look at Tom Hartley. Where are we here? The one thing that we liked about Tom Hartley today is just how much more accurate he was. He's still bowling the odd bad ball, and I think a wicket like this, probably you get forgiven for the odd bad ball a little bit more rather than some of the other wickets we've seen so far. But there weren't as many as the blatant shockers. There weren't as many of the balls that were... quite often we would get, really, really full balls down here. We would get, a lot of shorter balls around here. Whereas when you actually watched him bowling today, I thought he was a lot more accurate, which kept the pressure on. And if you think about the reason he had a high economy rate for a while, was Jadeja actually hitting him off his length, right, which is not what they had to do in other series. This is the best bowling average for spinners this series. I think at the moment England might have more wickets to spin than India do. Yeah, it's funny. Everyone tells me he's not a part-timer. Anyway, poor guy. He's been bowled to death for that 50 average as well. Jadeja's obviously been fantastic. Kuldeep Yadav's been very good. I know a lot of Indian fans were upset that he was under-bowled in that first innings, but that's having 5 bowlers for you. But you can see Hartley's really holding up quite well here so far. This is more of a concern, but it's more of I suppose that's a concern for the rest of the series, but it's more of a long-term concern as well. This was interesting. And of course, Rayan Ahmed averaging 44, I think is fine. But Hartley's been fantastic. And think about it, he's got 13 more wickets available to him throughout the rest of this game. So even if he just chips in for the rest of the game, he could be quite handy. He is going to have to, for the second time, have the pressure of bowling, and who knows how many runs England will set or what the situation will be. But he will have the pressure of having to bowl in a situation where you are the main spinner and you are expected to win the game. That maybe wasn't the case in that first test because no one really expected much of him. It's a real thing and spinners do struggle with it. This is the best bowling averages in a series by touring spinners with a minimum 10 wickets. You could see that you've got 4 Australian spinners in here. This is the 10-fer. Imran Tahir back in 2015 doing really, really well. You got Simon Harmer. these are all quite experienced bowlers, except for Murphy. So Murphy's the only one, and Murphy got much better surfaces to bowl on than Hartley did. And you can see, I thought last time Leach bowled pretty well, and I thought the surfaces suited him. And Hartley's not that far behind, right? They still would rather have him than not have him. But it is worth noting. 2016, did he not take 10 wickets in the other one? I know he didn't play all the games, Moeen Ali. But anyway, but you can see again, Tom Hartley's more than holding his own. And this is 10 wickets and 100 runs by visiting spinner in India in the last 10 years. So this is your all-rounder class, right? So you've got down here Mitch Santner. And remember, his bowling average was 52 when he did it. You got Moeen Ali. We just saw his bowling average wasn't very good either. And Adil Rashid. Okay. So this is probably one of the better, all-round performances we have seen by a spinner in India. And also, he wasn't really picked for these surfaces, right? Tom Hartley was more picked for this wicket, not the first 3 wickets. So to be in a situation where he's done so well, I think that is, really, really interesting from that perspective. And all credit goes to him again. What have I done here? Oh, sorry, everyone. I am going to take a quick break because it looks like my system has just frozen on me for a moment. But I'll take a quick break and I'll just reset this and I'll be back in a moment. Jared Kimber, Scoreboard. Why don't you take this time to subscribe?
If you need your pitch changed, well, NordVPN can doctor any surface to a new location so that your IP address is set for you to win. Want to watch a game on a free stream in another hemisphere? Give NordVPN the ball. Or if you just want to watch a clip on social media that a cricket board won't allow, promote NordVPN to pinch hit. So if you need a VPN, go Nord. Use nordvpn.com/Kimber to get a 2-year contract with a discount, plus 4 extra months and gifts in some markets. It's completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the show notes. Protect your computer like a bowler protects the boundaries in the death overs with nordvpn.com/Kimber today.
All right, welcome back. Sorry about that. And that's the end of Tom Hartley, but yeah, I was really, really impressed with him. Let's just go into India. We did some of the maths at the start. This is India first inning deficits at home when they batted second in the last 10 years. They lost 8. They lost all. Okay, yep. So you've got 241 in checkbook. So that was the one on that flat wicket when Akshar and Jadeja didn't play. I think that was before Akshar's first test, if I remember correctly. The Pune one, where Steve Smith sort of got away from them, and then Steve O'Keefe went absolutely crazy. They don't have a lot of losses here. And this was the Delhi shootout game, which is kind of the one we thought this one was maybe more heading towards, right? So, they won this one, didn't they? Is that right? Wait, sorry, just let me look at my notes. India have won just one game after being behind. Yeah, so this is the one they won, which is the shootout game against Delhi. So you can certainly see here, it's not ideal. We're not looking at, this is a completely different kind of wicket. It's probably more like this wicket. That was a wicket that just turned a lot, whereas obviously this one has other issues on it. But if they can get themselves even towards this area, they still give themselves a bit of a chance, right? This is the highest fourth innings total chased in first-class cricket on this ground. This one was none for, so it was a none for 81. This one was 4 for, and I think this one was 5 for. So you look at 2016 there, 2020, and this one was back in 2017. It's not been a ground that's been particularly easy to chase on. I remember the Australia game in 2017, I thought it was a really interesting wicket. It was only a 3 innings game, and Australia weren't chasing anything, of course, although they were behind after India made 600. But what I thought was quite interesting is that the footmarks played a huge part. And when we got in today, we were having a look at it, at the start of the day, I didn't think the footmarks were all that interesting. By the end of the day, they are. So combining cracks and footmarks is going to give the spinners 2 bites of the cherry of the batters from here on in. So especially if we get to day 3 and late on day 3, early on day 4, that might be when the footmarks also play a part. You might not need them, of course, but it does tell you System doesn't want to do anything here. But just on the Indian partnerships here, this partnership did show that there was something that could be done. That was against the new ball, and that's the only reason I'm really noting it, is that I thought it was quite interesting that they managed to score so well against that new ball. And if you think back to the English tail against the new ball, there was also an element of them being okay against it. Now, I didn't think India bowled particularly well with their new ball. I thought England did okay. The pitch has got worse since this partnership. But if you'd asked me yesterday, I would have thought playing against the new ball would have been the absolute toughest part of this wicket. It didn't feel like it was as new ball dependent as we originally thought it was. Doesn't mean that India didn't make a mistake in not getting the new ball out earlier. And this is the batters who are out in the middle at the moment. So Kuldeep's ball spur dismissal is 44 in Test cricket. So he's very good at staying in. Stayed in for 72 balls today. We know he's basically good at opening the face and occasionally tucking off his hip. He doesn't have a lot of scoring options. That might be a bit of an issue, as I said before, if they want to score slightly quicker to put some pressure back, especially if they want to go against that older ball. And then you've got Juve Jarrell, who we haven't seen a lot of in Test cricket at the moment. Played that 6 down the ground, quite strong coming down the round. He might have to go off, but look at the control percentages here: 97% and 92. There was a ball that was bowled to Juve Jarrell that rolled along the ground, very similar to so many of the others that no one has got anywhere near. Right, some balls that have almost been no balls because of the lack of bounce. So I did think it was interesting that he played that. And the big difference, and the reason why you have a tail-ender with a 92% control and a batter with 97% control, is that once that ball got soft, right? So when I said before it's not a new ball wicket, that doesn't mean I expect England to take the new ball and instantly dismiss these two guys, although that's also on the table. But what I was saying is that when the ball is hard, so anywhere between the first over and the 55th over, there's a big advantage for the bowling team at that stage. I would throw out there, and this is a bit of it's not quite a wild conspiracy, but I would throw out there the fact that this is, I think England might have played a part in getting the ball to go softer early, which was part of the whole plan of Bazball originally, right? Which is whack the ball as much as possible so you can get that ball softer so it doesn't do as much. It wasn't that I thought they were smashing it so hard that they got it soft. But if you go back and have a look, that ball gets soft around the 30 over mark for India when they were bowling. When India were batting, I reckon it's around the 60, 65 over mark. Maybe 57. I don't have my full notes in front of me, sorry. But I remember noting for a long time that ball seemed hard and still seemed to be moving quite quickly. Little things like this. It's a bit like when Australia got that replacement ball against them in the Ashes, and a lot of people are like, well, the ball's a lot newer. The umpires made a mistake. They obviously didn't pick the right kind of replacement ball. But the other issue is that they could have got a ball that was even newer that didn't do anything. If your ball goes soft earlier in India and you don't have a big advantage, that can cause some real problems. So if England do come out all guns blazing and get that ball a little bit softer, it would be quite interesting. It won't allow them to score as quickly. Anyway, that is the end of the scoreboard part of the show. We will be back in a moment for more of the normal parts of the show. So if you have questions, I see there's already a few there. I've already started a couple. Feel free to put them through. I'm Jared Kimber. This is Scoreboard, and we'll be back in a moment with your questions.
A lot of people complain that I'm not a former cricketer, and so that I don't really know the game. Well, you know what they can't claim? Then I don't know desks. I've been using desks for years. I'm a collector of desks, old and new, and I'm sitting on a new one right now. I'm the Don Bradman of sitting at desks. So when I tell you that the E7 Pro next generation height adjustable desk from FlexiSpot is legit, this is like Michael Jordan talking to you about sneakers. This desk holds 160 kilograms. It is as stable as anything I've ever seen, and it has under-desk cable management. But really, the main skill here is that this desk rises and falls at the push of a button, and it moves super quick. And it has so many settings that remember your favorite heights. It really does it all. And I could not recommend the E7 Pro from FlexiSpot anymore, even though I am currently sitting on one of FlexiSpot's BS12 Pro multifunctional, adjustable, upgraded fabric ergonomic chairs. My butt and computer have never been happier than when using one of FlexiSpot's products. So get over to their page right now for big savings.
All right, welcome back to the scoreboard. Jared Kimber. I've got some questions. No super chats today. Well, yet anyway. If you do want to add a super chat in, please do. But there's plenty from the room, like Rahul, who says English spinners were very accurate today, and India kept waiting for the loose balls, which didn't come often. Were India too timid on a wearing pitch? I think I don't think it's a particularly easy pitch to score quickly on and to attack on. Outside of England, when it was very brand new, like even England scored slower than normal, right? So I don't know if I would say India was too timid. Also, to be fair to them, they did come down the wicket and hit a couple of sixes, right? And so Jadeja hit sixes, Dhruv Jurel hit a six, Jaiswal hit a couple more sixes, of course. So I wouldn't have said they were timid. I think they got to a point where, and I'm not going to blame them for this at all. Once they'd seen that many balls run along the ground, how confident did they feel at coming down the wicket or swinging across the line? So you're only really left with coming down the wicket then. England spinners bowled quick, maybe not as quick as the Indian spinners, but quick enough that made that a little bit tougher as well. So I think you have to give a lot of credit to the England bowlers for not being loose, because they have been loose. Even when they've been bowling well, they've been loose at times. Rahul says, are balls keeping low always due to luck, or can it be deliberately done by the bowlers sometimes? No, on this pitch, it can definitely be done by the bowlers because they're aiming at the cracks. And, we made a joke. I did a podcast with Steve Harmison. I said, even you'd be able to hit these cracks because there's so many of them, right? It's a phenomenal amount of cracks on the pitch. Anyone here who can bowl a cricket ball down the other end would be an outside chance of hitting one of these cracks, just because there are so many there. Like, it's a very large target. So if you think about, you might be in a situation where you've got one crack, let's say 6 inches long, running along the middle of the wicket. If you're aiming at that, you need to be a very, very accurate bowler. But those cracks in that situation also have cracks running in the other direction on both sides of them in some cases. And if you miss it 6 inches to the left, sometimes there's a crack, and sometimes on the other side there's a crack. You can over pitch and hit a crack, you can under pitch and hit a crack. So it's a more luck dependent pitch than normal. But if you look at what the bowlers are trying to do, so Shoaib Bashir is aiming at that crack that is half a foot outside off stump, and he has hit it regularly, and that's what he's trying to hit. And he's trying to hit the straight one that runs down the wicket, but there's also another one that runs horizontal, which when he over pitches, which will do something slightly different. But that's basically what he's aiming at. So no, there's skill in that, but it's not like you can hit the crack and nothing might happen. You can barely miss the crack and it looks like you've hit it and it goes straight on. So all the bowler is trying to do is get that ball in that area as much as possible, hoping that. So we had one today, later on where a lot of the balls on this pitch, when they've hit the crack, have gone low. But Root hit the crack late on, and it went veered off sideways. Also, it's incredible that I've just said crack like 44 times there, and yet on air today, when I tried to say crack, I said crap. Not my best work. Although Suresh says, love the commentary on TalkSport. I observed the invariable bounce is mostly on the lower side, making batting manageable as shown by Jurel and Kuldeep at the end. Is that assessment right? No. What you noticed at the end was the fact that the ball was softer. So there's one from Jurel that actually kept really, really low, and he still middles it. It just went slower, right? When the ball is hard, that's going to be it so much quicker, and he's not going to be able to react in the same way. So I don't, the variable bounce has been going on pretty much low all the way through. We saw the ball that hit Crawley yesterday and a couple of other balls yesterday, but the vast majority of it has been low. You can't plan for a ball rolling along the ground, right? You can still handle a ball rolling along the ground if it's a little bit slower, and it's also much easier when you're set. All right, these things are very, very hard when you first come out because it's a different way of batting. If you've been on a difficult wicket for a little while, and let's say you have an old ball, or one of the bowlers isn't bowling well, or the bowlers are starting to get tired. All these different things play a part. You can get in then even when the better bowlers come on or the newer ball comes on, you feel a little bit better. But when a new batter comes out and that ball, the first one that keeps low, they just get stuck, right? Mirad says, missed out on your explanation of Dream 11 to Goffey on TalkSport. Can you give the gist here? Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything that Indians won't know, but obviously with betting in India being illegal, and I say illegal because, I'm pretty sure when the betting sites did their inventory of VPNs, they realized that the vast majority of VPN users were probably from India by the amount of cricket bets that were being made. There's a fun fact for everyone. So we know that Indians still bet. We also know that with WhatsApp and Messenger, that betting has probably never been more full on. There's things about taxing bets and making it even semi-legal towards legal in India into the future, all these things. But when Dream 11 comes along, it is a legal way of betting, whether you call it actual betting or what do they call it, skill-based betting or whatever it may be. Fantasy sport has an element of betting to it. So I think there's a whole new generation who maybe didn't want to get on a Telegram with their uncle's friend or whatever that may be, or work out how to do it that way. And so Dream 11 gave them an option to still get the highs of betting, maybe in a maybe more aimed at a younger audience as well. Like fantasy sports, I know are not particularly new to American audiences. Was it the 1980s when those guys wrote the book about their baseball fantasy betting, a fantasy baseball thing that sort of spawned the whole industry? Incredible that that a couple of fans just kind of invented this on their own, and then so it's maybe seen as younger and fresher. I don't know if there's an element of that as well, of a bit like how younger people don't drink as much as their parents. Drinking is now seen as much more of an older generational thing. Certainly in many parts of the West now. I don't know if that has an element of it as well. But essentially, Dream 11 came along at a very clever time. They saw the market. I never talked to them directly, but they asked for my help early on, and I know some of the people who were involved. And they certainly saw things that I think a lot of people, people that ran Cricinfo and CricBuzz didn't see. It's a huge missed market by and in some cases, I don't know if they could have been involved because I don't know what the legality was and everything else. But, Dream 11 was certainly very well backed, which helped them as well. Because there were other fantasy games out there, but I think most of them were free. My memory was that you could do free fantasy game more, and this one became a little bit different at that point. But I think right place, right time, right culture. I mean, I don't think it's that surprising that the two places that I've seen sort of fantasy explode are India and America. And in both of those times when those explosions have happened, gambling on sports was not legal, right? So it is a form of gambling. Even if it is not gambling in a more traditional sense. And I don't think that's a massive surprise that if that is the case, that those places have gone out. It's really interesting. It would be really interesting to see what happens to fantasy sports in America now with sports gambling. I don't know if there's been a regression in fantasy sports or anything else, but a lot of those fantasy sports places are now, involved with normal sports gambling. Aman says, how likely do you think that England gets skittled tomorrow? Do you think they could get too suckered into playing aggressively because there's a ball with your name on it? I think the swing for me is Ashwin. I think if Ashwin bowls, not the way he has in this series, but the way he can bowl, perhaps towards the end of the match in the third test, where I thought he did look a little bit like he was getting through his action nicer. If he bowls like that, I do think England might go, well, we've got Jadeja at one end, we've got Ashwin at the other, and we've got all these cracks, and these guys are going to hit the cracks a lot more than our bowlers did. You could see how they get involved with that. You could also see why. I know there's some weather, there's been some clouds and everything. I don't think that will meet England will be terrified of it being a draw. But the draw might be in their mind a little bit more. England also play for days off. We know that, right? They're not going to want to come back on the fifth day. There are reasons that they could push their foot down a little bit more, Aman. So I think it's a good question, but you would hope that they saw the way they batted in the first innings, and there's a way about doing that. Maybe they attack for the first 10 overs while the ball is hard. Is it possible India don't use any seam for those first 10 overs and just say, Akash and Siraj, we'll bring you back, one of you back when we think the ball's reversing? give them something different to have a look at there. I think it'll be fascinating to see how they go about it. Part of it might be what their lead is, right? If they're leading by 120, 10 good overs, and they get that 50 for none start again, England, everything's going on. I don't think India have tested Crawley enough with the spinning ball early on, especially because we know he hasn't really made a lot of runs. And I don't see any reason why you wouldn't try spin from both ends. They might try Akash deep for 2 overs just because he nipped the ball around a little bit. And he seems like the kind of bowler that could hit a crack. Chitra says, any comments on the WPL opening game? No. I mean, I was commenting on another game. The only highlight I've seen today that wasn't this test match was Raheem Cornwall's catch, which if you haven't seen it, I think is on Twitter. Isaac Lockett might have tweeted it. What a man. Imaginative Idealist says, how much of what this pitch has turned out to be is because of what India asked for? I know it's not a perfect science, and I don't think India would be foolish enough to ask for a pitch like this. Yeah, I mean, who knows? I often think when you ask for a wicket to be in the favour of bowlers, it's more likely... It's a bit like the South Africa one in Cape Town, right? And they're like, oh, can you make it a little bit more spicy? And the groundsman tries to make it more spicy, and it just goes to shit. Wonder if they said to the groundsman here in Ranchi, can you make it a little bit more bowler friendly? Because it's a flat surface. I think that's probably fair to say. Certainly early on. Can you make it a bit more? And it just didn't work. This is what, the 3rd test match. There hasn't been a first-class game played here in 3 years. I've said this before. Sometimes with these curators, it's just they don't actually curate enough of these kinds of wickets. And so they get in a test match, then maybe there's pressure on them. And the pressure isn't always, oh, the BCCI said this, or the ECB said this, or Cricket South Africa said this. Sometimes the pressure can be from, tourism boards, local government, the marketing department, whatever it may be. And if you're not used to making 4-day wickets on that surface, so you might still be a good, 4-day, but on that particular surface, if you're not used to making 4-day surfaces, and then there's any weather that comes in that you're not expecting, if there's any external pressure to change the wicket, quite often that's when wickets go a bit bad. This is not a good wicket, right? I don't think it's as bad as we thought when Zach Crawley almost got hit. We're still looking at possibly going into the 4th day. May not, but possibly going into the 4th day from where we are at the moment. But it's not a consistent bounce wicket. And, you shouldn't have what happened to Ben Stokes on the first day. Although I would say after that Ben Stokes one, the next 3 sessions I thought were okay for batting. Maybe even the next 4, Jaiswal and Gill putting runs together, right? There was a long period of time when it wasn't that bad. But it certainly there's just a wicket cracking up, fine. Australian wickets crack up, Indian wickets crack up, West Indian wickets sometimes crack up, the South African wickets. We understand that. A wicket being cracked on day 1 is probably not anyone's plan. And I think I'll just go to the next question because it sort of follows on from this. Aman says, what advantage do India get by making such a volatile and toss-dependent pitch? That's the thing, right? If they did ask for this, then I think they made an error. I don't think they would have asked for this kind of wicket because there's so many cracks on that surface. Even amateur spinner, no, it's unfair to call Bashir and Hartley amateur, but you know what I mean? Amateur in terms of test cricket spinners that just learning that they're still going to be able to hit those. Where if you had a wicket that was footmark dependent, you would back Jadeja a lot more to hit the center of the footmarks. If you had a wicket that just deteriorated over the course of the game, you would back Jadeja and Ashwin and Kuldeep to be the better spin bowling. Again, I was talking about this before they lost that test to Australia. So it's a long time now going back of literally saying, if you keep doing wickets like this, you bring the opposition into the game. So I don't know. I mean, no one's going to know the full answer to this. I wonder if also the best thing that could happen in India, we know that they've been talking a lot about the wickets from what? Is it 2018 onwards? 2016 on? 2017 maybe onwards? I wonder if the best thing for them, they're just a better cricket team than other sides, of just to say, just do your best cricket wicket and we'll play and we don't worry about it. I don't know if it's if India needs to worry about the wickets as much as possible. But I don't know what went on here anyway. Joel says, too bad Hartley's going to end up behind Lyon in the upcoming county championship. So I thought this is interesting because Lyon is, if Hartley is to be a potential takeover from Jack Leach, and I don't know if I've seen enough to suggest that is the case, but because of his batting and fielding, we know how England kind of value those things. There's always a chance. If he is going to do it, there's no better person to learn about how to be an all condition spinner than Nathan Lyon. But Joel makes a very good, valid point. How many overs is he going to bowl as the second spinner in a county side behind Lyon? Perhaps if you know you have both of them, you make the wickets rag a little bit more and back both of them. And obviously Hartley's batting is a bit of a boost in that way as well. But England's kind of want to develop Tom Hartley on two timelines. I think in the short term, they want to make sure every time they go to Asia, he can just land the ball roughly where he needs to do it. And they keep upskilling him as a batter and a fielder, which he shows potential in as well. But on a longer term timeline, what you really want is for Tom Hartley to be able to bowl 25 overs in England without the bad balls. Because we won't be able to bowl these balls in England and get away with them. That is it for this part. I will take another break. And then after the break, I'll get to more questions. If you're desperate to ask anything else, please do. But I'm Jared Kimber, and this is The Scoreboard.
Good Areas is our other YouTube channel, and twice a week it covers the great cricket stories from today and from 200 years ago, like how a late 1800s blogger decided which games were tests, and that actually stuck. Also, why Ishant Sharma was one of the biggest comebacks we'd ever seen in our sport, and whether captaincy affects batting. For all of this and more, go to Good Areas twice a week. In cricket, we protected our groin a full century before we looked after our brain. So don't be like our sport. If you need a VPN, go Nord. Use nordvpn.com/Kimber to get a huge discount on your NordVPN plan, plus 4 additional months for free. It's completely risk-free as well with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the show notes. Cricket wouldn't be the same without protection, and neither is your computer. Use NordVPN today.
Ayush says that first-class cricket is being played, but I was pretty sure, let me just have a look, unless I'm misremembering it because it's late in the day, but I didn't think there had been much first-class cricket played. I thought there'd been 30 T20 games in a row played at this ground, was my memory. But it is very possible I have forgotten that. Let's have a look. First-class matches. So there's only been 20 first-class matches on this surface, and that is kind of my overall point. But let me get into match results. Yeah, so if you are, let's have a look. Yeah, you're right. There was one game played in this year. Sorry, I had forgotten about that. But the one before that was in 2022, and the one before that was in 2020. All right. If you're a groundsman, there is absolutely no way you can be certain that you're making a great first-class / test pitch on this surface, right? Because you just haven't had enough, practice doing it. So that game was really, really interesting because I did look at that the other day, but I've forgotten about it because the first innings was 204, plays 150, and then Jharkhand had to chase 429 because in the third innings there was a couple of hundreds made, so they made 374. So that's obviously, just looking at this scorecard, I would say that is a very different wicket than this. 2022 was much more the kind of wicket that we think about when we think about this kind of ground. So 2022, 475 scored in the first innings, 340 in the second, 187 in the third, and then 237 all out, chasing 323. Interesting to note that someone did manage to do that. Both, I'd say, again, this wicket was a little bit different just because of the cracks and everything else. But that's kind of what I'm talking about. There's not that much, right? If you're a groundsman and you've made 2 first-class wickets since 2020, how can you be sure that you're going to make a good wicket? Then, if there is external pressure, and it's worth noting external pressure can be weather, time, finances, staff, government interference, selectors interference. I even know of times when the cricket board has asked for a particular kind of wicket and the team has asked for a different kind of wicket. All these things happen, all right? If you're not experienced on that surface consistently making them, it can be a real problem. Sankup says, they'll cover the WL and then uncover for sure. I was saying, I should have mentioned this when the other question came in about the WPL. Estelle, Cheyenne, and myself did a video on the WPL, which should be up on the main site at the moment. If you want to go and have a look at that, kind of like a scouting report, trying to explain how the teams come together and everything else. Great work from Cheyenne and Estelle on that one. Mandev says, has John Boy already done more for cricket in America than the ICC ever did? Yes, but you're assuming that the ICC's job is to grow cricket. I don't really think that's their job. Their job is to make sure that umpires turn up on time and we have a World Cup. USA have been in the World Cup before. USA probably should have. If USA had been run correctly, the old USACA, if it had been run semi-competently, there's no reason why they wouldn't be on a level of Scotland, Netherlands at this stage. So USA cricket has a lot to answer for themselves. They were suspended, at least once. They've had lawsuit. They're constantly suing each other. It's also because it's a spread out country, it actually causes some problems with cricket. The facilities are terrible in some of these places as well. But look, John Boy's done brilliantly for cricket. I don't think anyone would argue that. For those who don't know, he's a baseball blogger baseball podcaster, video maker, who's done a great job. And I know Major League Cricket have already got John Boy involved in a little bit. So he's done great. But the ICC's job isn't really to grow cricket worldwide. It's to make sure that Faf du Plessis doesn't wear the wrong colour shoelaces, and that's what the cricket boards wanted, and that's why we don't have cricket as big in other countries. For the brief history lesson. The ICC was formed essentially because South Africa asked for it. So Australia and England were playing, and South Africa were the lowest team. They wanted to have a bigger stake. There was some gold money, I think, at the time. I think it was certainly from the mines. I don't think it was diamond money. I think it was gold money at that stage. South Africa had a little bit more money. They had a little bit more sway. They had a conversation, so we ended up with a tri-series. And in order to have the tri-series, we needed a group to govern it, and that became the Imperial Cricket Conference. Why was it called the Imperial Cricket Conference? Because South Africa asked for it to be only countries in the Commonwealth. Now, did they do that so that USA didn't come in? I don't know. I don't really know their complete thought process behind that. Were they trying to limit the teams that were going to come in? I don't know, because, we know that USA Cricket had a great bowler at the same period in the early 1900s. Team probably wasn't as strong, but they certainly had some good cricketers. Ireland was playing cricket. I don't know what Ireland's position with the Commonwealth was at that stage. Argentina, obviously, was a developing team at that stage. I'm trying to think of any of the others that were quite good. There's a few other teams that could play, but South Africa made that. That decision was an exclusionary decision that has held cricket back to this day. The ICC was not set up to grow the game. The ICC was actually set up to do one-off tournament and actually, if anything, make it a private members club and make it harder for teams to become the top level of cricket. There you go. Fun times for everyone. Ayosh says, the rain won't affect the length of the match at all. Feb is not the time for incessant rain. Yeah, I mean, there was at one stage a lot of rain scheduled for the end of the game. When people say stuff like this, A, we can't control the weather, so we don't know that there won't be a bad day. But B, also, that's not how cricket teams think. All right, the cricket team has to think, what if we lose a session? What if it gets really wet? What if we can't bowl our spinners because the outfield gets damp? What if we, all those sorts of things have to get involved. So you have to factor it in, even if it's not going to be a massive problem. Rupesh says, if India gets to 250 plus tomorrow, do they have a legit chance of winning, since the pitch is way more helpful now for Ash, Jadoo and Kuldeep? Well, the problem is that So if they get to 250, sorry, just quickly remind myself of what the current score is. So they're 219, so 250. Well, yeah, they should get to 250. They're going to have to get a lot more than 250, though, I would have thought. They're going to have to get closer to 270. I think they need to be within 80 of England. But let's say they get to 250 and they're 100 runs behind. So are you saying that the Indian spinners are, in the current form, available to outbowl England by such a percentage that they can bowl them out for 100 to 150, and that the Indian batters can then go out and score 250 on this wicket that England were only able to score 150 on? That's the question that you have to ask yourself, Rubash. I can't see that happening. I just, don't see the game being set up that way. Because by the time, let's say it takes, it's England. So let's say it takes England 35 overs to be bowled out for 150. Which I think, let's say 40 overs. 150 runs in 40 overs. That means the pitch is also 40 overs older. And if England do what India did, there'll probably be some running up and down the center of that wicket, right? Trying to get the edges of those cracks occasionally go. They probably won't want to run penalty because there aren't that many runs. It's a low scoring game, but they might be thinking to themselves, we can run up and down this wicket a couple of times. We can put ourselves in a good position to certainly have a chance to damage the wicket a little bit more. And it's also an extra 40 overs. That's an extra session and a half. So when India get out there, the wicket is going to be an extra session and a half worse than what it just was for the Indian bowlers to have bowled out England. Is any of this impossible? No. Last time I looked at the betting exchanges, let me just have a look now while we're live. England is around 170. So they're favourites, but not like hardcore favourites or anything like that. Still worth a bet if you're that kind of person. And India is 260, right? So again, England is the favourite, but it's not prohibitive. They're not that short. The market still thinks that India has a chance of winning. I think maybe England should be 150 and India should be closer to threes, maybe, perhaps, something around that mark. And I think the draw at 30-1 is remarkably short. The draw should be 100-1 already. But every time the ball rolled along the ground, I would look at the draw odds to see if they just suddenly jumped up, but apparently they didn't. But yes, so there's still a chance, definitely. But I would think they would have to get more than 30. I think they would have to get somewhere around 50 to 80. And as I said before, I also want them to get them quite quickly. And I'm not sure this is the wicket or the partnership that is available for that. But who knows? Because cricket is, and I am quoting everyone here, a funny game. I'm Jared Kimber. This is a Scoreboard. If this is your first time, we're here every single day of this test series and every other test series. Not every other test series. Every other. We'll be here for other things, I should say. Probably do the English summer. We'll certainly do the World Cup. Probably do the IPL. I'm not quite sure what my schedule is going to be like for the IPL. I've got a lot of other work coming in at the moment, but I'd like to do the IPL as well. But certainly the World Cup, we will be back for the Scoreboard. So you don't have to just come for now. You come and then you stay forever. One of us. One of us. One of us.
If you have always wanted to turn your passion for sports into a career, well, I have the course for you. Fans with Laptops is the multimedia course that I came up with after millions of reads, views, and listens to all my work. It's designed for anyone to use their own fandom to get better at making content on the sport they love. Go to Fans with Laptops today. If me talking live about cricket is not enough, we also have an entire channel dedicated to the best stories in cricket called Good Areas. Find out what matchups really mean, understand the logic behind baseball, and look at the most important selection in the history of cricket of Basil D'Oliveira. Come and visit us a couple of times a week on the Good Areas channel for a new video.